Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Cockpit, where we talk all things flying. I'm your host, May K. Beeler, Chief Transportation Correspondent and Pilot with Queen City News. And thanks for joining us here on Queen City News Plus. We have a great show in store for you today. You know, it seems like for years we've been hearing about the air traffic controller shortage. Exhausted controllers working long hours, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. We hear about fist fights in the tower at Washington's Reagan National Airport. So many accidents and strings of scares this year. It has a lot of people on edge. So what is it really like to be an air traffic controller? So in January, that horrific crash over the Potomac when an Army helicopter collided with an American Airlines regional jet when the airliner was on approach to a runway at Washington's Reagan National Airport, killing 67 people. It has shocked and stunned so many people. The flying public wants to know, is it safe to fly? What's going on? Now, according to reports, one controller was working two jobs in the tower that night. One controller was working both the helicopters and the airplanes. And from what I understand, according to reports, should have been two controllers. So was the fact that this controller working two jobs, did that at all contribute to the accident? We're not saying that it did. That's for the NTSB to investigate. But always accidents are attributed to a variety of things and factors. So that and the runway incursions that we hear about at Midway, Chicago's Midway Airport, where a jet was coming into land, and at the last minute on the same runway, a private jet goes in front of it, and the airline did what it's trained to do. It went around. But these things are just disturbing. And you wonder, is the pilot at fault or air traffic controllers at fault? Is everybody at fault? Is a shortage of workers at fault? So lots to talk about here. So our special guest today is Brad Klein. And Brad has been an air traffic controller and in this line of business for 19 years. And we're going to find out what it is like to be ATC. Brad, welcome. We know you're busy and you're working today, so we just want to thank you for taking time to chat with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, May Kay, and thanks for having me.
Of course. So let us know, what is it like? Can you tell us what a typical day is in the life of an air traffic controller? Because the flying public, we think, oh my God, it's the most stressful job in the world. It's got to be horribly on edge. What is the reality of it? Is that true?
In my experience, I would say that no, that is not true. It can be very stressful at times with bad weather or things like that, or heavy traffic. But the day-to-day, in and out, hour to hour, is not super stressful. I've worked at level 6s and level 12s, and they all have their own inherent stresses.
And Brad, I'm going to stop you. What is level 6 and level 12? We don't know it. What does that mean?
So the FAA ranking of airports goes from level 5, which is your slower, smaller airports, up to level 12, which is like a Charlotte, Atlanta, the bigger, busier airports like that. So I was at Asheville, which is a level 6.
Okay.
And then Charlotte is a level 12.
Oh, yes, of course. A big difference between the two?
The difference between the two largely is just traffic volume. The hardest thing going from Asheville to Charlotte was talking faster.
No.
That was probably the hardest thing, and keeping up with just the volume. The job is largely the same, but it's just busier.
We didn't talk about this before, kind of gave you an idea of what we were going to discuss, but I just want to ask, have you ever had to save a pilot? That you had a pilot that was in trouble and that you had to offer guidance or anything like that you can share with us?
I don't remember the exact specifics, but it wasn't unusual at Asheville in the mountains to have somebody, a VFR rated pilot, encounter IFR conditions and have an emergency that way and have to get them on the ground in foggy conditions or thunderstorm conditions or at night in the mountains. With all the MVAs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was fairly common at a place like Asheville, more uncommon at a place like Charlotte.
Sure, because of the terrain. Right.
And because it's a Class B airspace.
Oh.
And most of your pilots going through there, and I couldn't say this to a certainty, but they tend to be more experienced
Of course.
and
Of
have more
course.
stuff, more
Right.
ratings, things like
Right.
that.
And for people listening that aren't familiar, a Class Bravo airspace like Charlotte is the biggest, most busiest airspace, and student pilots are not allowed here. They have to come with their flight instructor first before they're ever allowed here. So, to your point, Brad, yes, they tend to be more experienced that are in the busy airspace. So, let me ask you, we're not judging anybody because we don't know what happened, but what's on the forefront of people's minds, the Potomac crash, the midair over the Potomac. Any insight into that as an air traffic controller, and what the controller that was working that night, working two jobs, is that fair?
First off, I would lead with it. That was extremely rare and extremely unfortunate.
Yeah.
Um, the the controllers in the United States and in the NAS, um, they are extremely professional and very good at what they do at every level. And it is not uncommon, maybe closer to routine, that we work more than one position at a time. Because you can't have everybody working all the time. So you combine up positions to allow for breaks and things like that. So I would say that him working multiple positions would be probably the routine. It was definitely the routine at Charlotte, where you would combine positions depending on traffic level. I've never worked at DCA,
Mhm.
so I don't know I've never worked that complexity with the helicopter routes combined with the final approach courses that they have there. But would say that it is not uncommon to work multiple positions at a time. And I would also add that I also don't think it's unfair. That's what
Okay.
we're trained to do. We're trained to
Okay.
do multiple things at a time.
Okay.
And
To witness something like that, I know that recently I reported on there was a fist fight in the DCA tower, and that maybe it's being attributed to the fact that these controllers had a bird's eye view, an up close view of when the wreckage was removed from the crash site and bodies removed, and that certain things you can't unsee. Am I correct in assuming that the controller that was working that night has been relieved of duties, at least temporarily, for the investigation? Not saying that this person was at fault in any way, but I would assume something like this would be traumatic and there would be counseling. Can you speak to that at all, Brad?
I obviously I don't know the details. Luckily, I've never been through anything
Yeah.
that severe. But I do know that my entire career we've talked about it. And there's that old cliche that a lot of controllers like to use about saving lives every day. And it never ever becomes a reality.
Mm.
Thank goodness in the U.S. that these type of things do not happen. And so for this unfortunate incident to happen to this controller, I cannot imagine what is going through their head. And at the least the FAA can do is give them time off to figure this out, because that is just something that doesn't happen.
So let's talk about the air traffic controller shortage, because our new transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, has said, "Oh, I know how to fix this. We're going to change the retirement age." So folks listening, and you correct me if I'm wrong, generally speaking, Brad, the mandatory retirement age is 56. And from
Correct.
what I understand, many, many years ago, back in the 70s, they came up with this because they figured that by the time you were 56, you were old. And this is too stressful for people in their 50s. Maybe that's changed, maybe not. Do you think that increasing the mandatory retirement age to an older age would be good, and could it help fix the shortage? What are your thoughts?
So I would say that, ironically, I think that air traffic control is more stressful when you're younger,
Mm.
because you're learning. As your experience level grows, that stress level goes down. Um, I would offer that I absolutely think air traffic controllers can work. I think a 60-year-old air traffic controller can absolutely work traffic.
Okay.
Um, can every one of them? No, but
Yeah,
also every 40-year-old can't work traffic.
that's right.
So it would be person dependent on their abilities to be able to work longer. The I mean, for example, my dad, he's 74 and he still talks to airplanes almost on a daily basis. So I obviously believe you can work past 56. The the only problem, I guess, or speed bump that I would see in the plan to extend the age would be, I mean, it turns out to be a money thing. And the retirement, the reduced retirement to work less years to get the same retirement benefit as other government employees that work 30 years, that would be your speed bump to overcome, because it's not so much to me anymore about the age and ability. It's about that an air traffic controller now can retire in their 50s and get a very, very good retirement in their 50s instead of working till they're older. So I think that would probably be the speed bump over the ability of the actual individuals.
How stressful is this job? I know you said it's not as bad as people think it is. You're cut out for this. For people who are aspiring to be an air traffic controller, what are the ideal traits?
The ideal traits for an air traffic controller is really just, to me, is work ethic and the ability to learn, and perseverance. Because training in air traffic control, the hardest part of air traffic control is learning how to do the job. Once you learn how to do the job, it is pretty much the same everywhere you go, with nuances there inside, of the different airports. But the learning curve from 0 to the first 2 to 3 years is quite steep, and you're going to have speed bumps, and you're going to have days where you don't do very well. You're going to have trainers tell you that you're not going to make it, because their job is to make sure you're going to be a safe controller. And there is a lot at stake. And there, as we saw in DCA, there is lives at stake.
Yes.
So that part can be stressful. But I think anybody can be an air traffic controller. I don't think that it takes a certain specific person. If you're willing to work hard and you have perseverance and you have the steadfastness to deal with the stress and deal with the learning curve, I think you can absolutely be an air traffic controller.
All right. So to wrap this up, people, the flying public, a lot of people are scared because this year has been unusual. We've had a string of just scary, and deadly accidents. So people ask me all the time, is it safe to fly? As an air traffic controller, what is your answer?
I would say unequivocally yes. What happened again at DCA is an aberration. That is extremely rare in the United States, and we have 14 to 15,000 extremely professional, well trained, very motivated air traffic controllers, where their only duty is to keep people safe. And we do it better than anybody else in the world, and the record has shown that for decades.
Well, Brad, that's a perfect place to end it. I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service. And as a pilot, God bless the air traffic controllers. You keep us as pilots safe and passengers safe. So we want to thank you, Brad, and we want to thank all of our listeners and our viewers today for joining us for Inside the Cockpit. Brad, please come visit us again. And to all of you watching and listening, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.